Hey everyone, it's Bob Pulver from Elevate Your AIQ. I am in Vegas at Unleash America, and right now I have the pleasure of speaking to Meredith Johnson, the Chief Product Officer of Greenhouse. How are you today, Meredith?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's great to have you. Enjoyed your sessions earlier, so thank you for helping me be the wake-up call that some of our audience needs when it comes to all the things that we were just talking about,
Yeah.
responsible AI, human centricity, human potential, and talent transformation, which is HR and well beyond. So I thought we'd dig into each of those aspects, but certainly I want to hear about your background. It's been about a year since you took
Yep.
this role. A lot of new things coming out from the product organization. You also have a new chief people officer,
We do.
and so I'm curious about how that is going
Yeah.
between product and HR, and then just want to hear about your background and the things that you've enjoyed and some of the challenges that you're looking forward to. So we'll start with a little bit about your background and what brought you to Greenhouse.
Yeah, sure. Well, I thank you for that. I've been in tech for my whole career, so well over 25 years now. And I was really blessed early on in my career to start at a company that was very mission centric. It was a kind of private and then public company in the social goods sector, and in the fundraising space, working across a variety of verticals in CRM, fintech, payment processing, and private and university school application. I think I got spoiled a little bit working in an environment where I felt a very altruistic connection to the problems we were solving. We really were creating tech that helped make the world a better place, and it was a really great place to kind of grow up in tech, even though we're going back now in the early 2000s, things were wildly different, of course. And so throughout my career, I've had a tour, at that company. I worked in legal tech for a while, and then, as you said, I came to Greenhouse just over a year ago. And for me, it was a bit of a homecoming, coming back to a company that's very mission-centered, and in my opinion, focusing on something that's really, really critical, which is people strategies and talent transformation and connecting people with jobs and jobs with people. I think it's really important. It's also really exciting because there's so much change and there's so much opportunity to leverage technology and think about the work differently. And that inspires me. I am, as you might expect, as a product leader, someone who is probably annoyingly focused on what are the problems we can solve, which ones are pervasive, which ones do we have a right to win or participate in. And so when I was coming to Greenhouse, I was looking for a mission I believed in, a team I had confidence in, a strong posture, of growth that was already there, but opportunity to make a difference, to drive change, and to solve problems. And so I feel like I've gotten all of that in this last year. It's been just really rewarding. The company is incredible. Our executive team is strong. And I think the work we're doing is really important. And I think a lot of it is really unique and special, and it's, important for our customers.
Yeah, for sure. And so I've certainly seen some of the evolution of what you guys have done, having had previous conversations with your two co-founders.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the things I was curious about is how everything is going with real talent, and what you've done. I like how you've presented this as not a point in time. This is where you stick it in to your recruiting funnel, and this is where it sits within the talent lifecycle. But you've really thought about the sort of end-to-end talent lifecycle and how you are being responsible by design. You've also had the humility to say, well, maybe we need to partner with somebody for some pieces of this where it makes sense. So you've got the clear partnership.
Absolutely.
I guess I'm curious how that's going and how you see that evolving and how you've sort of helped to put your own sort of design philosophy on all of that.
Yeah, sure. And I'll give a lot of credit to my team too, because we have an amazing team and a brand new head of design that we brought in last year as well. And so we've got an extremely strong technical team, product leadership team, new leadership in design, which it's made it really rewarding to do the work that I wanted to do. One of the things I should have shared about my background is just coming from the companies that I did. I've got a lot of experience in larger, more complex portfolios, rich partner ecosystems, and thinking maybe differently about how can we bring value to customers in a way that is thoughtful and, of course, in this space, ethical and purposeful, but at a faster pace. And so for this first year, I've really been focused on, to your point about partnerships, making sure that we're leveraging our partner ecosystem. I think in this space, it's a really rich environment. And if you're strategic and smart about it, it brings better value to customers. So partners are an important way about how we think bringing value to market, thinking about our portfolio beyond just having what I would argue is one of the strongest ATSs out there. Greenhouse recruiting is amazing, but if we think about the problems we can solve for our customers and how we want to grow the enterprise over time, it's going to have to work well beyond the ATS we knew 5 years ago. So that's a little bit of just my experience and what I like and kind of the focus that I've brought over the last year. And I think to go back to your question around design philosophy, and this will kind of stem into us talking about real talent. Greenhouse has a legacy of not chasing fads, of being really purposeful. And you need to be careful that it doesn't show up as slow, right?
Yeah.
So I've been really pushing and hopefully motivating the team this last year to think differently about the pace of innovation, to be purposeful and to not lose what makes us special, which is our structured processes, but to make sure that we're really like getting to the most important problems as quickly as possible. And that's why we had this big pivot on real talent last year. We were already planning to release a talent matching solution that was already in the works. We were building it, and fraud just kept coming up as this problem, right? Application volume was not looking for applications wasn't the problem anymore, right? It was like, there's too many, there's spam in there, there's fraud in there. The application review process is so tedious, right? It was just like constant complaint and worry. And so we quickly pivoted and launched to the market last June that we were going to tackle this problem. And that was the kind of spark for real talent. And what we ended up building was this kind of triple threaded product that looks at prioritization, verification, and then protection by having anti-fraud signals, anti-spam, ways to clear spam out of the system, being able to do the ID verification right now with Clear and that partnership, and then being able to have a human calibrated way of scoring and ranking candidates all in one place. No one's doing that right now. And it's been really exciting to get customers' feedback. And actually, it was really fun to design it with customers as we kind of moved through the back half of last year.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack there. I think that some of what you're describing has me reflecting on what Dan Chade and I had talked about, and I think he affectionately called it the doom
The
loop.
AI doom loop.
Yeah, the doom loop. And I know you guys have written about the sort of dysfunction that's happening, and how do you tackle that. I definitely appreciate the speed at which you're trying to tackle some of these things, but I also definitely appreciate the sort of pragmatic approach that says, let's lean into this concept of responsible innovation. Like, we don't necessarily have to be first, although that might be nice, but let's make sure that we're doing this in the right way. We're being responsible by design. I think that allows us to sort of level the playing field for candidates, but also give them the confidence that you're taking care of this personal data that
and experience
goes into a black box and people don't know what.
Yeah. And it's the data and it's the experience and the confidence that we can help build in the recruiting and the TA teams. It's also the experience and the trust and confidence that job seekers, can have. We really care about both sides of that coin. We talk a lot about trust at Greenhouse. And I mentioned in our session this morning, of course, there's laws and regulations and, things that we need to consider and follow, but I'm not motivated to follow them just because they're in place in their laws. Yeah. I'm really, and so is my whole team, motivated to think about trust and fairness and ethics and responsibility because it's what's right, and we want to create something that's useful and that our customers love, but that does give them trust and confidence, right? And we don't ever want to lose that structured core that's made Greenhouse so special, that we believe gives the most fair and equitable process to both sides of the equation. And so as we layer in AI and we come out with these new products, we're not letting go of how we think about our AI ethics committee and how we leverage external advisory boards and really making sure we're thinking through, the ever-shifting world around what's responsible, what's ethical, and what's trusted.
Yeah, I think there's other elements, to that as well, which is part of what I appreciate about, your approach to all of this. You've been independently audited by our friends at Warden, which is great.
We do that every month.
Yeah,
that's what's exciting too. I'm really proud. Like every single month, we publish it every month.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, no, I think people need to be continuously monitoring all of this, just like you would monitor for cybersecurity incidents and privacy issues and things like that. So I think that's great. And then you've done some things within your own partner ecosystem as well to make sure that people recognize, that you're building a trusted, ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we've just kind of rebuilt and launched our API, which is really exciting too, because it's creating more flexibility, more trust, and more ability for us to engage with partners differently over time. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that work. I think, I mentioned this earlier, partners are really important, particularly when you've got shared trust, shared ambition. You've got problems that are either, adjacent or related. And that's been one of the most rewarding things coming to these events is it's a lot of partner and vendor connection, which, you've got to remember that that's what's going on at these events. But it's really fun to see people you work with and think about how you can deepen the value for your shared customers. And it's fun to explore other opportunities too that, we may need to consider as we kind of move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You were talking about this on the panel that you were on a little bit earlier when we were talking about when we talk about human centricity. You can take that in a number of directions, but certainly fairness, sitting where you sit, making sure that humans are ultimately making decisions, that people are being looked at fairly, ethically, and then there's human potential, right? What are people capable of? Um, this surfaces in a number of ways. First, in terms of matchmaking, skills inference, things of that nature. But even when people get inside an organization, have we done the right things before they were onboarded to make sure that, quality of hire is there, and that, some of the things that we've looked for, and the promise and potential that we've seen in these, once candidates, now employees. And so have you seen your customers lean into that? I mean, as you get feedback from them about what else you could be doing to help them, whether it's from a product perspective or otherwise, I'm just curious to unpack that a little bit, because I think it's more than matching and can this person do this specific role. That role is going to evolve, of course,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
AI. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. It brings me back to when we ended that panel earlier today, which was on people strategies and how you engage the whole enterprise and thinking about talent and talent efficacy. There was this lightning round question of like, what's your one piece of advice for the room? And it could have been 100 things, but the thing that I leaned into, which I think kind of comes back to your question, is don't hire for where your company was. I wouldn't even hire for where you are. You've really got to be imagining where you're headed. And so how does that show up in how we think about AI proficiency and literacy, or how we think about doing a better job of being more clear about what are the outcomes we're trying to drive in the business? What is the work to be done, and how is work done? And are we getting to the clarity we need to in the recruitment process so that you have that deep alignment? I really think the companies that stand out and where talent is in a flow and performance is doing really well, I think often it's where you have the highest level of clarity and the highest level of alignment. Right. And so when I think even about where Greenhouse is today, we really pride ourselves on that structured approach, the fairness, the ethicalness, and making sure that we're weeding out bias everywhere we can, even with AI supported functionality throughout the recruiting, workflow. And that scorecard, how you think about being clear about the attributes, filling in that scorecard, getting the enterprise and hiring managers invested in hiring. It's not just on talent to hire great people, right? I mean, the best companies have more people than just recruiting involved. And I think, we already believe our solution helps drive that clarity and alignment on what are the outcomes. And we're not just looking for skills and experience and behaviors, but we're actually thinking about how that person we hire would apply themselves and work.
Yep.
But I think even as great as that is today, we really have to elevate the way that we think within our corporations. And how I'm thinking about it as a CPO at Greenhouse is how can that tool evolve to make sure that we're helping companies think about how work is going to shift, get the talent teams more literate in how work is actually done in the business, get the business involved in recruiting even more than they do today, and doing it all together in one system. And if you can do that with advanced tools and with ethical AI, I think, there's space for us to all do a little bit of a better job than we do. Because I think, I think that's where the good and the great companies are going to stand out from each other, is where they've got clarity, alignment, and understanding about what the future work is that needs to be done.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you see, just thinking about like having an AI ready workforce, how do you sort of think about that? I'm sure you're seeing job descriptions more and more, looking for those types of skills. Or is there anything going on that would sort of guide maybe some of your next innovations, or anything you can share in that?
Yeah, well, It's a really good question. There's actually a couple things I want to share. So internally at Greenhouse, one of the bold steps that we've taken outside of product strategy, just in the way we work, is rethinking our own hiring, right? And I actually mentioned this in the panel earlier. We're taking a bold step to say that if every hire we bring in doesn't advance our AI literacy or proficiency and doesn't bring an entrepreneurial spirit, you know, they're probably not going to make the cut, right? Like, we're being so specific because I think most companies, and if you look at the research, it'll tell you, are not prepared for where we already are, let alone where we're going, right? So we're just like, everyone's trying to catch up. And even when you see, I see this trend in job description, job titles, there's a lot of things that just kind of mention AI, but they don't actually take that step back to clarity and alignment of, for what purpose and for what intended outcome? How will it be applied and show up in the work that we do? And how would you measure and how would you know? It just says something like, you know, you need to have AI experience, right? It doesn't go far enough. So I guess I would challenge us all in this space to think about what it's going to take to actually get the workforce ready for where we already are and where we're headed. And so, yeah, it doesn't scare me. It kind of excites me, but there's work and ideation to happen there. So when you think about the product, we're going to be bringing new solutions into the Greenhouse fold this year that help more customers transcribe and capture the critical signal in their interviews that doesn't exist today. Because I think we really are starved for accurate signal, right? There's a lot of data, but a lot of it's slop, you know, back to that AI doom loop comment that Dan always speaks about. And so we're going to be focusing on solutions that capture signal that's meaningful, and then using that signal to help that match, right, be even better and more scientific and more confident. So I think, you know, one to watch is just what we're doing in that space, what we're going to be doing around AI screening, and then bringing more kind of fun to use and more modern chat interfaces into the product to help not only our teams and our users do their job better and more confidently, but really to infuse those AI experiences into the everyday tool, right? And that needs to happen within talent, and that needs to happen really across the whole enterprise.
Yeah, for sure. And everyone's adding AI skills and experience and quote unquote expertise to their resumes or whatever your portfolio might look like in the future. But yeah, it is hard to discern, well, what does it mean? Where exactly is your expertise? And the broader we are with our definition of AI itself, the more ambiguity there is in what we mean by, you know, some of these competencies. And it's not just the skills or the tools. It's like you were pointing out before, it's the mindset. Do you have a learning, you know, mindset? Are you, you know, adaptable? Are you recognizing that your prior skills that got you to this point in your career, the half-life of those skills is diminished.
It is, yeah.
You've got to sort of roll with the punches, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Meredith, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for taking time out of the conference to chat with me.
Happy to sit down anytime. It's important topics and really fun ones too to explore. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
All right.
Great to see you.
Thank you again. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.